To John, Judas is Satan, evil incarnate on earth.
For the next 2,000 years, whenever the Last Supper was painted, Christian artists used a series of coded visual devices to signify Judas's evil nature. In some, he was given a black halo to make him stand out from the other disciples. In others, he was depicted sitting the opposite side of the table to the rest of the 12. And in Da Vinci's painting, he was seen to be grasping his blood money, the reward for his evil treachery.
The Bible tells us almost nothing about Judas as a person, his background, his family, or even how he became a disciple. Whenever he is mentioned, it's always in connection to his supposed betrayal of Jesus. But one other clue we have is found in his name, Judas Iscariot. One interpretation of his surname is that he came from here, Kerioth, a small, isolated village in Judea. But even that was used against him, when later Christian writers claim that because he was the only disciple not born in Galilee, that was another possible reason for his treachery.
Today, Christian pilgrims come to Jerusalem to follow the route that Jesus took as he was led to his crucifixion 2,000 years ago. From the Middle Ages onwards, the story of Jesus' life and death has been enacted all over the world in special passion plays. In Mexico, at the climax of their play, they even carry out a ritual execution of Judas.
Judas was always used to represent evil. He is the scapegoat. He is the fall guy.
We will pay you 30 pieces of silver.
Sometimes the actors portraying Judas would be physically beaten, would be shamed by the society. It was not a role that you coveted if you were going to participate in the Passion play. It's not just Judas Iscariot, the historical figure, that becomes vilified. What we have is the name Judas become synonymous or equal to Jewish. And so we have Jesus and the other 11 disciples become Christians, become Gentiles, and Judas remains the only Jew. When he becomes associated with the Jewish people, we see an unbelievable rise in anti-Jewish violence. People would lose their lives. They would be humiliated publicly. And part of this is owed to the idea that Jews are Christ killers or God killers.
Although Judas was once one of Jesus' closest followers, for most Christians, his supposed act of betrayal transformed him into an outcast, a traitor, the exact opposite of what a true disciple should be. So, there are no patron saints, no shrines, no cult of relics for Judas, no gospels or letters in the Bible with his name attached, no churches named after him, and no prayers or hymns sung in his memory. I even feel uncomfortable mentioning his name in this church, the holiest in Christendom, the place where most Christians believe Jesus was crucified and rose from the dead.
The trouble is that some scholars now believe that Christianity's 2,000-year-old character assassination of Judas is based on the faulty translation of a single Greek word.
Verily I say unto you, one of you which eateth with me shall betray me.
The word that is translated as betray in English, in Greek is parodidomi, and it doesn't mean betray. It means to hand over. The most common examples of this come in terms of military conquest. When one general has been vanquished by another, he will symbolically hand over his sword, property, and his soldiers to the general who has conquered him. But we see it translated as betray in English, and this is incorrect.
The mistranslation of this word, transforming Judas into a traitor, is now thought only to have appeared when later church fathers first translated the Bible into Latin in the 3rd century.
But that is a revolutionary idea for most Christians who believe in the traditional view. You're suggesting that they have demonized him based on a misinterpretation of the word to betray.
Yes, and as Christians, we believe that Jesus was handed over to the authorities and that it was necessary for him to go to the cross and die, and that this was part of God's plan. What if God chose a human being, Judas, who was not divine, who was fully human, to be part of this? What does that say about God? That perhaps God can use us to help in the salvation of other human beings.
According to the Bible, after supposedly betraying Jesus with a kiss, Judas realizes the enormity of what he has done and tries to hand back the blood money to the Jewish high priests. He then flees the city to a place known as Hakeldama, the field of blood, where he commits suicide. Although today the hill is full of rock tombs, Judas's body has never been found. In the eyes of the church, by committing suicide, Judas compounded his sin, a sin for which some say he cannot be forgiven. Today, on the top of the hill above Hakeldama, there is the Greek Orthodox monastery of Saint Onufrius.
Could he ever be forgiven for what he did?
I don't think so. According to the gospel again, if Christ himself told us that it was better not to have been born, he took his life himself.
Because he took his life, he can't be forgiven.
The life belongs to God.
Life belongs to God.
Yeah.
With this new scholarly research, I wanted to know if the largest Christian church would now change its attitude to Judas.
Io credo che sia molto difficile.
I believe that it would be very difficult for the church to change its position in relation to Judas. I even believe that it would be impossible, because there are no factors which could cause it to change its position. All that we know has already been revealed. I don't see any new factors that could offer further insights beyond what we already know.
In my search for the 12 disciples, it seems that the man singled out by the church as the ultimate example of a bad disciple could in fact be quite the opposite.
Could it be that the Last Supper, as we know it, is a callous distortion of the original event? That there was no betrayal, no disciple corrupted by greed, and no treacherous kiss in the Garden of Gethsemane? But that instead, what Judas did was the act of a faithful disciple, without which there would have been no sacrifice, no resurrection, and no Christianity as we know it. For 2,000 years, has Judas's reputation been cruelly manipulated by the church? Is it now time to replace the image of Judas the traitor with Judas the hero? In the final part, my investigation takes me beyond the traditional list of the 12 disciples to see how the church deliberately excluded some of Jesus' original followers, and also to find out the real significance of these 12 people, why they are still so important for the world, and how anyone can become a disciple. My journey to uncover the secrets of the 12 disciples is now almost complete. I have already investigated the church's disputed claim that Peter came to Rome and how it gave the papacy its power. How a legend was created to miraculously transport James from Palestine to Spain to help the church defeat Islam. Of John, who lent his name to one of the most controversial books of the Bible, but almost certainly didn't write it. Of Thomas, whose epic journey to the East has been dismissed by scholars in the West. Of the 3 mystery disciples whose real identities remained hidden because they were Jesus' brothers and too Jewish for the later church. And of Judas, whose evil treachery derived from the mistranslation of a single Greek word. And then, of course, there is the most important disciple of all, the one who has had the biggest impact on the Christianity we know today, and the man most responsible for the way we now understand the events surrounding the Last Supper, even though he wasn't there, the Apostle Paul. But are these the only disciples? Surely there is a glaring omission, one that has a direct bearing on how the church is governed today. Something that still causes division and bitter conflict throughout the Christian world. The complete lack of any female disciples. If there had been even one, there would be no debate today about women priests, bishops, and even the possibility of a female pope. After Paul had